This is the process shot. I'm Michael. I'm stuck in a landscape of imagination, and sadly, it's not as exciting as the one in this movie. Where the Wild Things Are is an adventure fantasy from 2009 directed by Spike Jonze, adapted from the children's book of the same name. It follows the book in a general sense, but adds much more to the original events, effectively becoming a whole new story in its own right. There's still a young boy named Max who runs away from home and sails across the sea, and he still finds himself on an island populated by several giant wild things. But there's a lot more depth to it all, especially after he's crowned king of the wild things. As Max lords his power over the others, he comes to find that being a ruler isn't as easy as it seems, especially when the problems become deeper and more emotional than simple quarrels. Not to mention that the stakes become more than... Actually, the stakes are being eaten alive, so that's pretty extreme. To me, this movie feels like the central point where the trend of mature adaptations of children's stories or TV shows came from. I'm probably wrong, but either way, it manages to handle it well, unlike other attempts at doing that, thanks in part to how it maintains the youthful perspective and tone of the original while incorporating new ideas. The expansion of Max's life before he sails off is an excellent setup for later plot points with the Wild Things, both in analogous emotional or personality traits, and in the actual topics that Max brings to them. Granted, the use of the wild things as symbols does leave them a bit underfleshed, but it doesn't hurt the film as a whole. Similarly, there's also not as much time given to setting up the real world and other characters around Max, or at least as much as I would have liked, given how much they play into the world of the wild things. I figure it's more to do with this story being about Max and his coming of age, as well as how he has to find out the hard way the consequences of his wild behavior. Not to mention seeing or not seeing his own personal frustrations from the perspectives of others. In any case, the movie extends its shift towards realism into its visuals. The world around here is pretty earthen and droll, with a dirty, wintry color palette, but with enough environmental variety that the world still feels larger over time. Come to think of it, the real-world scenes have a bit more color compared to the Island of the Wild Things, but I don't know if that's intentional. Anyways, the cinematography helps to really sell the size and scale of the world, especially when it comes to the wild things as they handle large objects with ease, as well as the highlight of the film's imagery being a giant fort built from trees that stretches up into the sky at nearly impossible heights. Speaking of scale, the presence of Max among the wild things is consistent thanks to the film's amazing special effects, combining live-action costuming and CGI animation in a seamless blend. It's honestly a bit hard to tell what is real at times. There's also a good amount of stunt work in the movie, mostly to showcase the size and power of the wild things as they throw themselves and each other around, with a few explosions here and there for good measure. As for the film's music, it's what really sells the emotional tone of the story, with a softer folk sound in contrast to the spectacle of the ongoing events. The overall tone of the movie is a rather well-handled mix between a grounded, coming-of-age drama and purely imaginative fun and adventure, expanding on the original story to become its own thing, while remaining true to its roots, making for a movie that could feasibly withstand the test of time the same way the original book has done. Hopefully. Where the Wild Things Are. Spike Jonze, 2009. 4 stars. I'd say that it's worth a watch. That's it for this review. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. I kind of wish I had seen this movie sooner. This is another one of those films that could have been formative for me if I had seen it at the right time of my life, I think.